Okay, I already started doing some Flintknapping off camera, and I don't really feel like napping all that much today, but I need to put up some content, so maybe I should share some of my struggles with pressure flaking. Yeah, so I'll be doing pressure flaking here in a minute. And try to get some patterned flaking going. Now this is Dacite Obsidian. It's going to be probably a challenge because Dacite's a little bit steppy, but I got a lot of this, so I don't want to ruin my good Obsidian yet. I'll go through this stuff first, and then I'll go through the good Obsidian. And I'm choosing Obsidian tonight too because it's so easy in terms of effort to nap it. I'm not going to wear myself out for the rest of the week. I need to do a lot of napping this week, so I don't want to wear myself out in the beginning. Now, what I was noticing earlier was that I need to abrade this stuff a lot when pressure flaking. And it's hard to believe, but I need to actually abrade this twice as much for pressure as I need for percussion. I forgot how much I need to abrade this to run long flakes with pressure. See, I've already been practicing. I got some debitage on there, but it wasn't so good. But I'll just put the not so good stuff up on video anyway. Yeah. Just break out the pieces and go to town, and doesn't matter if it's good or not. All right. Let's see. Get some aluminum. Be a little bit more gentle on the edge with aluminum. And just regularize it. Now, the more narrow it is, the easier it is to run flakes that are patterned on it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make it narrow. So you'll probably cringe at the amount of material I'm going to remove, but I want to be able to go to the center with the pressure flakes, or a little bit past, you know. I either want to make a median ridge or a little bit past with the pressure flakes. I have a hard time making long pressure flakes. I can make long percussion flakes. It's just the long pressure flakes that are giving me trouble. And I received a little bit of instruction during the napping from my friend James, and he noticed I don't have much follow through on the pressure flaking. And he's right, because I don't really follow through on my pressure flaking, because most of the time it's just to regularize the very edge. It's not to do any kind of interior thinning or any kind of cosmetic flaking. It's just regular old simple pressure flaking around the edges. Trimming is basically what I do with pressure. I just trim and regularize. I don't do any thinning with it. And I don't do many points with pattern flaking. You can do pattern flaking with percussion. I've done it. And I can do it. But there are some points that you can replicate so much better if you can do it with pressure, which means they probably did a lot of the pattern flaking with pressure, right? It's pretty obvious. How they did it with the pressure, that's the thing, but it was probably pressure. The mystery is how exactly with the pressure did they do it. It's not a mystery that pressure was used. It's a mystery as to how they used the pressure flaking. There's different ways to use the pressure flaking. Different tools. Different support. Different pads. That kind of thing. Different preforms. How did they prepare the preform? Was it heavily ground? I have not seen any heavily ground preforms at all. They all seem pretty jagged and unground on the edges. Yeah, so I was saying that it looks like I'm going to have to abrade twice as much as I do with percussion. Pressure is going to require twice as much abrading, so it seems so far, than with percussion. Which is a bummer because it slows down the process. Yeah. Seems to slow down the process a lot. Or I'm just, could be imagining it, but it seems like it slows down the process a lot to have to do the abrading and regularizing the surface. The surface has to be just right as well. Not just the edge, not just the overall shape, but the surface of the preform has to be pretty regular to do the pattern flaking. What's patterned flaking? You know, parallel, oblique, collateral flaking. It's just long flakes in sequence. You don't have to do it exactly in sequence. You can skip, do every other one, and then come back and do the ones in between. You can do some on a tip and then come in from the other direction. You don't have to do it all in one pass in one direction. You can come in from different directions. That sort of thing. Yada, yada, yada. But what I'll be doing is I'll be trying to do it as simple as possible. Nothing fancy. And nothing too strenuous. If it looks like I can't run flakes to the middle, I'll make it more narrow. Alright, so now I got to begin regularizing to make sure everything's convex and there's no drastic changes in the surface. There's a lot of lumpy things going on right now. Alright, so to take the lumps out, I'm going to use a finer tipped. I ground this down a little bit earlier. Working on that debitage down there, I was working on a smaller point than this and just taking off little bitty flakes, so I sharpened it up. I can attempt to do the pattern flaking with percussion the whole way, but I do need to practice the pressure flaking. Yeah. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of this regularizing going on, so you guys can go make a sandwich or whatever. I'm going to regularize this whole thing and try to make everything convex, all the surfaces convex, and the edge not too thin. Beef up the edge a little bit, and then grind it heavily, and then start pushing off flakes. I'm working with the focus there for a second. Did I start zoomed in? No, it's not zoomed in. Okay. I'll zoom it in a little bit probably as I start the pressure flaking. No, come on. Yeah, this is going to take like 2 or 3 passes to get the surface regularized. This is just one pass so far. That was one pass. I need to do another one at least, and then maybe another one after that. Lots of lumps down at the base. I gotta be careful when I'm working the base because I can easily snap this thing. Dacite is very snap and halfish. Yeah, so regular flaking is more of a meditative approach to flint knapping. It's not expedient at all. It's more meditative than any other approach, as far as I can tell. I mean, you gotta really get in the zone. From what I was doing earlier, I had to get in the zone big time. All right. I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, okay. Not like that. What the heck happened there? See, I abraded a lot just then, but with pressure, I need to abrade even more than that. You'll see. So I'm just working on the surface. I'm working on the surface more than I normally would to make it convex. Normally I wouldn't care if I got a big scoop out as long as it looks okay. You know, it's random. My random flaking, as long as it's not steppy, I don't care if it scoops out a big area because I'm not going to run any more flakes in there. But with this particular arrangement, or this particular goal that I have in mind, I need to make sure the whole surface is very regular, with no dips or step fractures to stop anything. Yeah, I may have to go more narrow now because there's a bit of an island starting right there. You might ask, well, why did they go through the process of regularizing for a final pass when the regularizing looks just fine? As you know, it works just fine without the final pass. That's a good question. I don't know why they would go through the trouble of the final cosmetic pass when the process of regularizing makes everything look pretty darn good. Looks like a finished piece without having to do that final cosmetic pass. I call it cosmetic because it's not necessary. You already regularized it. There's no step fractures on the surface. It's already thinned down pretty good. Why would you need a final pass? That's a good question. The only thing I could come up with is they just pressure flake the whole thing from start to finish. They didn't have this ability or technique for regularizing with the percussion. They just did the whole thing with pressure. And it didn't look that good until they got down to where it was narrow enough so they can run the pressure flakes to the middle. But that's a very, very long, tedious process if they did that. If that's what they did, it's a long, tedious process to start with pressure early on and use nothing but pressure to get it thinned down, shaped, and regularized before the final pass. But even so, it would look pretty good before the final pass, I would think. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. It didn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me, so I didn't really do much of it. But it was obviously done a lot. So maybe in the process of learning how to do it, it'll start making sense. Another thing that I could possibly see is that the final pass is actually a sharpening technique and not an aesthetic cosmetic technique. It's a sharpening technique on the whole blade. Why they can't sharpen it during the regularization process like I normally do it, I don't know. Apparently it's a mystery. I had no idea why they would wait to sharpen it with a final pass when you can just sharpen it during the regularization process. I'm having to go pretty narrow, like I said. So this will allow me to go to the center with pressure. Without straining too much. Because if I had to do 10 of these, wouldn't want to exhaust myself on the first one. All right, if you get a wide point, it'd be totally exhausting to make 10 wide points. If you make them more narrow, it's not so bad. See, I can get pattern flaking with percussion, but I gotta set up the areas and stuff, and it takes longer. It's not expedient. But I can see where it would be advantageous if it was a sharpening pass to do the final pass with a lot of regularity. Yeah, I can see it. Or maybe they thought that doing a final pass would strengthen it because you're removing the ugliness. So maybe that would make it stronger. I don't know. Could be superstition. Alright, so it's getting pretty regular. I can probably do a better job regularizing it from here on with pressure. Right? Well, I can do minute flaking with percussion. Just give me a couple more minutes and let me get some of this regularized a little bit more. And then we can switch to the pressure. The tedious pressure flaking. And yeah, I'll quit my whining. I won't whine too much, hopefully. What's going on here? When I encounter a tough, crushy spot on the edge, that's a sign that it's going to be one of those days. I'm already feeling the flakes getting between the pant leg and the arm. All right. I'm not wearing a glove. I'll put it on here in a minute. I don't want to mess up this during the percussion stage. If I have the glove on, sometimes I can't tell how hard I'm hitting, and I end up hitting too hard and it breaks the whole thing. So hold on. How the pressure flaking is going to deal with these little steps, hopefully it'll deal with it easily. I'll be taking down the edge even more than this. Oh yes. Still too wide. I can tell because of my previous knappings down there earlier. I said to myself, man, it's got to get really narrow. I'm really bad at these long flakes. Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to do something but my inability to run the long pressure flakes. We gotta fix that. If possible, I gotta fix my inability to run long pressure flakes. It's just embarrassing. Yeah. I'm doing this base thinning now before the whole piece gets too thin, because if it gets too thin and I try to do this later, snappiola, you know what happens? Snappiola pudding. I could be doing this with pressure, yeah, I know. Less snappiola when pressure on the with pressure on the base. Yeah, you're probably right about that. I know that. You know that. Why don't I do it? I don't know. Feels like it's going to be really crunchy. I got more experience with percussion, so I'm just going to do percussion for now. I don't know. It's still way too crunchy. What am I going to do? I'm trying not to hit hard. That's the problem. I don't want to snap this whole thing yet. It's making me hit it really hard. I still didn't hit it hard enough. Still didn't. Okay, that's about as hard as I want to hit it. And it looks all right. It looks like it's getting regularized little by little. Yeah, see, I can run the long flakes with percussion. But I just feel embarrassed I can't do that with pressure. Yeah. And I would like to answer those questions too. How do I do the pressure flaking? Instead of answering with, I don't, I should be answering with something. So it looks like any problems or issues that are on the surface I can overcome with pressure. Yeah, I don't see any. Well, there might be some areas that might block a pressure flake, but it looks pretty regular. Yeah, okay. So you thought that was being tedious around the edge. Wait until I start regularizing it with pressure now. This is only the first stage. I gotta regularize it with pressure. First I regularize it with percussion, then I gotta straighten out that edge and make it beautiful, and then grind it heavily. Yeah, we're just starting. We're just starting out. There's a lot to go. Yeah, there's a lot of tooltip maintenance too. Yeah, and then we started with a nice flake. I started with something really clunky earlier. I shouldn't have done that, because I ended up with a little bitty snappiola point. A little point, it got real small and then snapped from a big old chunk. because I was just trying to make regular flakes without any problems. Everything perfectly convex, and if there was a mistake, I would try to do the damage control immediately to get rid of all the mistakes. Ended up with a little bitty walnut that snapped in half. Now you know. Snapped in half because I was hitting the base really hard. The base ended up thick because I was ignoring it until the end. This one I didn't ignore it. I thinned it down. Yeah, this is mostly downward pressure. I'm just looking at the edge, basically. I'm not looking at the surface right now. I want to get the edge nice and straight, or at least not too lumpy. It doesn't have to be straight. It can have a slight curve to it or whatever, but only very slight, and no step fractures near the edge. And no lumpy spots. Now, it's possible back in the day they just put bevels on this and didn't prepare it for grinding. They just beveled and beveled and beveled until it got solid enough to do the pressure, the heavy pressure. I might do that someday. Let's see. I forgot I'm losing my mojo here. I forgot to put my gloves on. Getting too preoccupied with the regularization. Yeah, if I end up with a flake in my finger, I'm not going to have good mojo. I was already starting to feel them. Yeah, you got to be comfortable in a good state of mind. At least a little bit. This can't be a completely torturous process because you just can't function right. At least I can't. And you might say, well, you do a lot of tough rocks and stuff, and you act like you're miserable. Well, I try to minimize it. Believe it or not, I try to minimize the misery. It doesn't always work, but at least I can back off and say, I'm not going to do any more. That's it. That's it till tomorrow. That sort of thing. I can always do that. I never push it to the point where it gets ridiculous. I've pushed it pretty far sometimes and I really get frustrated. But I don't push it to the point where I lose my temper. No, that's just completely counterproductive and you get diminishing returns. There's only so much you can push before it starts to wear on your ability to concentrate. You know, you push too hard and you get angry and you can't concentrate. Or you get aggressive and it becomes like a sprint instead of a careful climb. Yeah, I can compare this to rock climbing, I suppose. Yeah, rock napping and rock climbing. It's a coincidence they both deal with rocks, but you know, some of the same principles apply. I haven't done much rock climbing. I did it a couple times. On easy stuff, yeah, you got to prepare ahead of time and get your fingers strong. I didn't do anything challenging, but I did have to suspend myself by my fingers a couple times. All you got to grip, all you got between you and the ground below is your fingertips on the ledge. You got to have strong grip. You got to practice it. That was a long time ago. We did some of that in Boy Scouts. That was a long time ago. But I still remember. Some of it. Okay, so let's see. I need to grinding. Yeah. If I don't grind a lot, there's a lot of premature flakeration. Okay. Alright, so I'm not going to be doing this absolutely perfectly, but I'm going to try. Yeah, we're not getting much of a focused cooperation. Let's see. And I'm leaving dull spots in between. That's okay, because I'm going to come back and pick those off. What I should be doing is I should be placing these flakes a little closer together so those dull spots are not so big. I gotta follow through. I'm really not using the whole extent of the EC stick. Let's see. Now I got it. I've got it against my belly now on that side. I was out and I had the tail of the EC stick hanging out in the breeze. Alright, let's see if I can push off some long flakes here. No. That was that one right there. Yeah, these are just normal flakes. There's nothing special about those. Yeah. Alright, let's try some on the other side. And where I don't see a good spot I can press on, I won't take it. That one I did too aggressively. I gotta use some passive pressure and just let it release by itself. Yeah, I'm pushing way too hard. And I'm not even getting parallel flakes. I'm just getting a bunch of chatter, it looks like. Still didn't grind enough. Alright, I ground it really hard, didn't I? Oh, come on. I need to hold it in a different way. No. Ah, come on. Okay, we'll try it on the other side. So I'm just gonna bevel it a little bit. I don't know if that looks like regular. It doesn't look regular, but oh well. See if we can do better on the other side. I think the flake over grind guys just shear this whole edge instead of picking at it. They use a tool that just shears everything off. But I'm just going to pick at it. Compared to random on the other side. Some of these were regular pattern flake on one side and then random on the other. Or sometimes they were unifacial, right? I think. Alright, so I gotta grind it a lot. That's what gets me. Yeah. All right. Gotta lose a bunch of the edge to remove those dull spots. All right, so I was told it's best to work toward yourself. It looks like a long flake, but it didn't come off that way. This was it right there. That one there, I guess. Push in and follow through. Push in and follow through. Yeah. I think I stepped it. Alright. I blew through that step. I'm sort of getting there. I caused a step fracture. Little bite. Come on. Should be wearing 2 gloves. These flakes. They get between my finger and the tool. Alright. Come on. Don't make me break the tip off. Nope, come on. Nope. There you go. Okay, so there's that pass. I do have to trim off some of the grindy spots. Okay, so I just work toward myself again here. You know, work this way. Let's fix the tip a little bit here. It's curving a little bit downward. All right. So I ground it. Now work toward myself. Pushing the flakes in the direction of the other ones. I don't know. I'm going to have to regularize it again. I'm pushing too hard, aren't I? Oh, yes. Way too thin. Dang it. I'm not achieving the narrow flakes. All right. I'm getting the wide flat flakes. All right. I shouldn't be trying to do damage control with these flakes. Should just be focusing on making sure they travel. I think I'm getting a little impatient. Yeah. A little bit impatient. All right. So there's that pass. So I'm getting a little impatient with it because I can see there's already an error. There's too much taken off of one one side there. Yeah, I do think it's a sharpening technique. It's the only reason why I think that they would do it that way. But we'll see. To do the shaping, the thinning, and the parallel flaking, there's 3 things all in one. It's going to take some practice. The sharpening, the shaping, the thinning, and the paralleling. There's 4 things. Because I don't want to be repairing the edge after spending all that time doing the fine final flaking and then repairing the edge. Like I said earlier, if I had to do 10 of these points, they'd be a nightmare, right? Why would you do that? I did the symmetry there. I really took back that edge because it was off on a symmetry. See if I can run some longer flakes. No, I got some room because it's not symmetrical. I need to take back that edge. Let's do some more practice. It's easier to practice down near the base. There's more to hold on to. I see some dull spots. All right, so I'm going to quit. Well, I can put notches in. How's that? But that's it for the flaking. See, the flakes are running that in that direction like this, but there's some that are nice and close together. Come on. And then some that are farther apart. So it still looks pretty random. But the edge is thin. Let's see if I can get it to focus. See, the edge is pretty thin. If it will focus. Yeah, so all that care in preparing the surface gets the edge pretty thin. Yeah. All right. So notches. Just do the easy stuff. Easy notches. So called. Just gonna put some barbs on it. Get my other glove. Where's my other glove? Where's my brush? Where's my other glove? Come on. Can't have any discomforts while I'm doing the notching, because then I'll mess it up. Break the tip off or something. Crunchy, crunchy. Crunchy, crunchy with the spatula tool. Yeah, so much easier to notch this stuff than chert or flint. The only problem is you don't know. It's kind of unpredictable. Some of these pop outs, they can go wild. So I won't do too many pop outs. I'll just do the crunches. Crunchy, crunchy. Gotta make sure I don't put my finger on that tip. That tip is really delicate. Okay, can't take too many chances. That was good. Actually, working on the edge is helping me with these notches. I get the feel for the material. Now let's just hope I don't speak too soon. I get a feel for how hard I need to push to generate a flake. Because if when you do this mostly with indirect percussion and then do the notching, you don't really have that good of a feel for how the notches are going to go, or how the pressure flaking is going to go. I think I know why they punched it out in a certain direction, flipped it over and punched it out in the other direction, because the tip is out here now. See, when I flip it over, the tip is under my finger. See, if I flip it over to do that, the tip now is under my finger. So I think now I know why they would do the majority of the pop outs on one side only. After all these years, that's got to be it. I never really paid too much attention to that. See, because now the tip's out here. I can put more pressure on this side and do a bigger pop out. Oops, and have more control. You didn't miss anything. I'm just kind of widening out the notch. I'm not going to push my luck though. Just a little bit more and that's it. Just for symmetry. Yeah, that pressure flaking the edge really got it. Gave me a feel for how much pressure to use on the pressure flaking. Yeah. So that's good. I just want to sharpen it. Okay, good enough. Good enough. The edge is pretty nice. I don't see any dull spots. It's a lot of work just to get it thinned down enough, or regularize it enough so to thin it down. Yeah, it's a lot of work. And then you get so thin that it's going to break off for sure. But I can see how that would get the final product very, very thin. Yeah, I think that's, and sharp. I think that may be the reason for the final pass of this type. It's just to get it sharp. And not really for cosmetics, although it looks nice. Yeah, I do need to run on the next one. You know, I'll be more careful to do a complete pattern, because I didn't do the full. It looks like I didn't do the full pass on this side. The edge is already thin enough. Yeah, and a pretty straightforward stem and base. Yeah, I didn't need to thin that out or anything. Okay, so there it is. I'm actually happy with it. I can compare my progress. Should be able to get these ribbon flakes under my belt, the ability to do them under my belt after a couple dozen of these. I'll do some off video and maybe 20 of these. I'm still not comfortable with knowing and predicting the length of these. And of course, if I work with different materials, it's going to be different each time. Yeah. All right. Hope that was helpful. Okay. All righty.